The NBA trade deadline is right around the corner. So far, it hasn't been the most active deadline, but there's still time and we've had a couple of good deals already. Now, the trade deadline is a weird time. Usually, on the day of or around the trade deadline, the NBA games are still happening, so what you get sometimes is a roster of an NBA team that has like 2 G League players or an 8-player rotation, just because that you traded pieces away and the new ones haven't joined yet. For some, it's a great time. If team hasn't used you properly, you get a new opportunity. It's exciting time. Maybe a team that is pushing for playoffs or a championship needs that one last piece to fully contend. But it's also a sad time. Players have to leave cities, their families have to move, and some players really love the city or team that they play for. So all the emotions run wild during NBA trade deadline. But what about players who seem like they always get traded? There are some players who have been traded even 9 times during their career. So in honor of the upcoming trade deadline, here are some NBA players who have been traded the most. And we start our list in an interesting way. There are 7 NBA brothers who have been traded 7 times during their career. One of them is Otis Thorp. Once a 20-plus point per game scorer in this league, one-time All-Star, one-time NBA champion, and played for 8 teams during his career. Now, luckily, most of the times he was traded was during the off-season, so it wasn't like all those 7 times he got traded, it was mid-season with limited time to adjust, get accustomed to new teammates, and so on. Still though, it wasn't easy. Trades or not, Otis had a pretty successful career in the league, as he played in a total of 1,257 games and averaged 14 points and 8.2 rebounds. Another brother with 7 on his resume is Ridnour, a solid point guard once for the Seattle Supersonics. Like Otis, he mostly was traded during off seasons, but unlike Otis, he wasn't quite as good of a player. Still, he was a piece teams wanted, and that's why they traded for him. Or you could say the teams really didn't want him. Depends on your perspective. Either way, he too had a pretty solid career, as he amassed 830 games in the NBA and played for a total of 5 teams. Ridnour averaged 12.9 points and 6.2 assists. Joe Smith. Now there's a record hunter. He played for a total of 12 teams, but was traded 7 times. Former number 1 overall pick in 1995, Joe Smith didn't quite have the career of an all-star that everyone is expecting for. 5 out of 7 times he was traded, it was during the offseason. And everywhere he got traded, he just was that former number 1 pick who didn't pan out. Overall though, he played more than 1,000 games in this league. 1,030 to be exact. And averaged 10.9 points and 6.4 rebounds. Not quite what you expect from number 1 pick, so maybe that's why he got traded so much. Don McLean. Now this dude had a hard time. He came into the league and averaged 6.6 points. Then, in his second year, he averaged 18.2 and won the Most Improved Player award. He spent 1 more year in Washington and then was traded. And it all started. 56 games with Denver, traded. 37 games with Philadelphia, traded. 9 games, traded. 17 games, traded. And it just kept happening. He really fell out after his breakout season, and compared to other players on this list, played just 319 games in NBA and averaged 10.9 points and 3.8 rebounds. As the next member in our Club 7, we have Jim Jackson. Now, Jim Jackson was very good in Dallas. One season, he averaged 25.7 points. He was a solid shooter from 3 too. Somehow, someway though, he was a common trade asset. But hey, he had a chance to live in almost every big city in USA. That's cool. Most of them though he spent just 1 year in, but he played for a total of 12 teams and averaged 14.3 points and 4.7 rebounds in 885 career games. He had a good career nonetheless. Another player who was traded 7 times during his career was Marcus Camby. This cat was one of the best shot blockers in the league. Camby was a really good center back in the day. He's a 4-time league leader in blocks, 4-time All-Defensive Player, 1997 Rookie of the Year, and 2007 Defensive Player of the Year. But he also got traded quite a bit. Mostly though, when he got traded, he also stayed there for a bit. In total, he played for 6 teams, and his longest stint was with the Denver Nuggets. Marcus Camby played in 973 games in the NBA and averaged 9.5 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks for his career. If you want to find out more about Marcus Camby, I have a video about his career on this channel. And the 7th player of this Club 7 is Sam Cassell, probably the most accomplished player on this list. Sam Cassell is a 3-time NBA champion, 2 times with the Rockets, and back in 2008 as a Boston Celtic. He's also been assistant coach in the NBA basically since his player career ended in 2008. As a player, he was a 1-time All-Star and in his best season averaged 19-9. He played for 8 different NBA franchises and in 993 career games averaged 15.7 points and 6 assists. He was a really good player, a solid starting point guard back in the day, but as you can see, he got traded a lot as well. Okay, but let's up the ante, and we have our top 3 trade champions. Dale Ellis. He was traded 8 times during this career. He was a lethal scorer back in the day. In a span of 4 seasons from 1986 to 1990, he averaged more than 23.5 points every year. In 1989, he had his best season, averaging 27.5 points, and that was the year he made his one and only All-Star team and made All-NBA team. For his career, he shot more than 40% from the 3, and he shot quite a lot of them for that time, more than 4 attempts per game. He spent his best years in Seattle, but in total played for 6 different NBA franchises during his career. He played 1,209 games in the NBA and averaged 15.7 points and 3.5 rebounds for his career. And Chris Gatling, another 8-timer. He was known as one of the first to start wearing headbands. Gatling wasn't as good of a player as Ellis, but he was a 1-time All-Star as well, in his best season averaging 19 points and 7.9 rebounds. What's cool about it is that he did that coming off the bench for the Mavericks. As a bench player, he became an All-Star. That's quite a great accomplishment. He played for 8 different franchises, and yes, for most of his career, he was a bench player. Out of his 700 NBA games, he started only 86, and for his career averaged 10.3 points and 5.3 rebounds. After his NBA career was over, he also played 1 year in Russia. But the main guy on this list, the player who has been traded the most time in his career, is Trevor Ariza. He's been traded a whopping 9 times during his career. He's also probably the one player from this list you know the best, as he just recently played for the Lakers in 2022. In total, he played for 10 different franchises and was known as a great 3-and-D player back in his heyday. He also won the championship back in 2009, and in his best season, 14.9 points and 5.6 rebounds. He got traded as much, I think, because every team was always looking for that 3-and-D guy, and Ariza proved just that. Always a defensive menace and a very capable 3-point sniper. Maybe not his latter years, but at his heyday, definitely. In total, he played 1,118 games in this league and averaged 10.4 points and 4.8 rebounds. So this was the list for today. Them boys got traded a lot. But is there any player out there that you can think break these records? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a like. Also, share it to support players who will get traded on this trade deadline, and also subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much for watching. This is Purple Prince, and I'm out.